The Buddha never asked anyone to believe him. Not once. He did not call what he taught a religion. He did not call it a philosophy. He used a word that most English translations get wrong, a word that means training. And that single distinction changes what you do with everything he said. He said it to a group of villagers who had been lied to by every holy man they had ever met. They asked him the one question no religious teacher wants to hear. How do we know you are not lying too? His answer is why millions of people today practice something they cannot quite name, something that works without asking you to believe a single thing you cannot see for yourself. The story starts in a small town called Kesaputta. The Kālāmas were not monks. They were not seekers. They were ordinary people. Farmers, traders, parents, living in a town on the trade route between Kosala and Magadha. And they had a problem. Every few months, a new teacher would pass through Kesaputta. Each one would say the same thing. I have the truth. The last teacher lied to you. Follow me. And then another would come and say the opposite. After years of this, the Kālāmas stopped trusting anyone. They did not know what was real anymore. When the Buddha arrived, they did not bow. They confronted him. The Pali texts record their words. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who come to Kesaputta. They explain and promote only their own doctrines, and they denounce and dismiss the doctrines of others. Then other ascetics and Brahmins come, and they do exactly the same thing. We are left uncertain. We are left in doubt. Which of these teachers speaks the truth? And the Buddha did something no founder of a world religion has done before or since. He agreed with them. He said, "You are right to doubt. Do not go by oral tradition. Do not go by lineage of teaching. Do not go by hearsay or by scripture. Do not go by logical reasoning alone. Do not go by the seeming competence of a speaker. And this is the part that changes everything. Do not accept something simply because this ascetic is your teacher." He included himself. The Pali word for what the Buddha offered instead is Ehipassiko, pronounced Ehipassiko. It means come and see, not come and believe, not come and worship. Come and see. Verify it. Test it against your own experience. If it reduces suffering, use it. If it does not, put it down. No major religion on earth uses that word to describe itself. Christianity says believe and be saved. Islam says submit to the will of God. Hinduism says trust the Vedas. The Buddha said come and see for yourself. That is not how religions talk. But here is the strange thing. It is also not how philosophies talk. Philosophers argue positions. They build logical systems. They debate in academies. The Buddha did not do that either. He did not say, here is my argument for why suffering exists. He said, here is a training. Do the training. See if the suffering stops. If it stops, the argument is irrelevant. If it does not stop, the argument is also irrelevant. William James, the father of American psychology, made a distinction in 1902 that the Buddha had made 25 centuries earlier. James separated institutional religion from personal religion. Institutional religion is about buildings, hierarchies, creeds, and membership. Personal religion is about direct experience. What happens when a human being encounters something that transforms them from the inside? The Buddha's teaching fits James's second category perfectly, and it resists the first one completely. That was how the Buddha described his teaching to strangers. He had a word for it, but the word the world uses today, Buddhism, is not that word. The word Buddhism did not exist until a Frenchman invented it. In 1844, a scholar named Eugène Burnouf sat in a library in Paris and published a book called Introduction to the History of Indian Buddhism. It was the first time any European language had the word. Burnouf did what European scholars had done to every non-Western tradition. He turned it into an ism. Hinduism, Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, a label, a category, a box. The Buddha never heard that word. He never called what he taught an ism. He called it Dhamma-vinaya, pronounced Dhamma-vinaya. 2 words. Dhamma means what is true, the way things actually are. Vinaya means discipline, training, how you practice. Together they mean something no English word captures. Truth plus training. Not a belief system. A training system. Imagine someone hands you a manual. Not a prayer book, not a philosophy textbook. A training manual, the kind a pilot gets before flying. It does not ask you to believe the airplane will fly. It teaches you how to fly the airplane. And then it asks you to get in the cockpit and see for yourself. That is Dhamma-vinaya. That is what the Buddha taught. And for 18 centuries, no one called it anything else. And here is where it gets personal. Because the question is not what scholars call it. The question is what you do with it. If you are watching this video, there is a good chance you have sat on a cushion at some point, or read a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, or downloaded an app that promised 10 minutes of calm, and at some point someone asked you, "So is that a religion?" And you did not know what to say. You are not confused because you do not understand Buddhism. You are confused because the question itself is broken. Religion or philosophy, those are the only 2 boxes Western culture gives you. And the Buddha did not build what he built to fit in either one. If this is changing how you think about that question, subscribe, because every video on this channel goes back to what the Buddha actually said, before the labels, before the institutions, before the translations got in the way. Because the Buddha did not just reject the label. He rejected the entire way religions ask you to relate to their founder, and what he offered instead. A Pali word called Saddhā will change how you think about faith itself. There is a story in the Majjhima Nikāya about a man crossing a river. The water is deep. The current is dangerous. There is no bridge. So the man gathers logs and branches and vines and builds a raft. He paddles across. He reaches the other side. He is safe. And then he does something strange. He picks up the raft, puts it on his head, and carries it with him for the rest of his journey. The Buddha asked his monks, "Would you call that man wise?" They said no. And the Buddha said, "I have taught the Dhamma compared to a raft, for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of holding on to." Let that land for a moment. The founder of one of the oldest traditions on earth looked at his own teaching and said, "This is a tool. Use it to cross. Then put it down." What religion tells you to let go of the religion? But here is what that argument misses. If you walk into a temple in Thailand or Sri Lanka or Japan, you will see something that looks exactly like religion. Incense, candles, chanting, people on their knees. The Buddha may not have asked for worship, but 2.5 billion people worship anyway. So the honest answer is more complicated than either side wants to admit. Christianity does not say the Bible is a raft. Islam does not say the Quran is a raft. The Torah is not a raft. These are permanent truths, eternal revelations, the unchanging word of God. The Buddha looked at his own words and said, "These are also impermanent. When they have done their work, release them." That is not how a religion talks about itself. But it is exactly how a training program works. A pilot does not carry the manual into the cockpit forever. At some point, the training becomes part of you. The manual is no longer needed. Remember the training manual? The Buddha did not write a chapter called "Believe these things." He wrote a chapter called "Do these things and see what happens." And then he added a final instruction. When you have crossed the river, put the manual down. But if the Buddha rejected belief, then what is faith? Because Buddhism does talk about faith. The Pali word is Saddhā, pronounced S-A-H-D, da. And it does not mean what you think it means. In Christianity, faith means believing without seeing. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You believe first, Evidence comes later, or never. Saddhā is the opposite. It means confidence, the kind a patient has in a doctor, not before the first treatment, but after. You went in with pain. The doctor gave you something. The pain decreased. Now you have saddhā, not blind trust. Earned trust. Trust that comes from results. The Buddha never said, "Believe me." He said, "Try this." And when a wealthy Jain named Upāli came to debate him, the Buddha proved it. Upāli was not curious. He was hostile. He was a devoted follower of Mahavira, the founder of Jainism, and he came to Nālanda specifically to defeat the Buddha in argument. His own teacher had sent him. The debate would be public. The humiliation would be permanent. But something went wrong. The Buddha's arguments were better. Point by point, Upāli found himself agreeing. And then something shifted in him. He asked to become a follower on the spot, and the Buddha said no. He said, "Upāli, make a thorough investigation first. Do not rush. A well-known person like you should act carefully." Upāli was stunned. He had never met a teacher who discouraged a new follower. Every other teacher he had known wanted more people, more donations, more prestige. This man was telling him to slow down, to investigate, to make sure. That is not what religions do. Religions want conversion. The faster, the better. Say the prayer. Sign the card. Join the church. The Buddha said, "Not yet. Are you sure? Have you tested it?" Upāli became a follower anyway. But he became one with his eyes open. That is saddhā, not faith in the dark, confidence in the light. The Buddha was 80 years old. He was dying. He had been walking for months. His final journey through the kingdoms of northern India, teaching as he went, knowing he would not return. His body was failing. He had eaten something that made him violently ill. He could barely stand, but he kept walking. They reached a grove of sal trees near a town called Kusinara. It was not a grand city. It was not a famous monastery. It was a small, unremarkable place, and Ānanda, his closest companion for 25 years, could not understand why the Buddha had chosen to die here. Ānanda was the man who remembered everything. He had memorized more of the Buddha's teachings than any person alive. He had stood behind the Buddha at every sermon, every debate, every quiet conversation by a river. He had given up his entire life to walk beside this man, and now this man was lying on his right side between two sal trees, and the flowers were falling out of season, and Ānanda could not hold it together. The texts say he went behind a building and wept. He pressed his forehead against the doorframe and cried, "I am still in training. I have not yet reached the goal, and my teacher is about to pass away, the one who was so compassionate to me." The Buddha noticed he was gone. He asked, "Where is Ānanda?" Someone told him. The Buddha said, "Bring him here." And what he said to Ānanda is the most dangerous sentence in the history of religion. He said, "Ānanda, be your own island, be your own refuge. Let the Dhamma and Vinaya be your teacher." He did not say, "Pray to me." He did not say, "Build a church in my name." He did not say, "I will return." He did not appoint a successor, a pope, a patriarch, a living prophet. He said, "You have the training. Now use it. Be your own refuge." That word, refuge, in Pali it is dipa. It can also mean island. Be your own island. In a flood of confusion, in a world where every teacher contradicts the last, do not cling to me. Stand on your own ground. The Dhamma is the ground. The Vinaya is how you stand. Every religion on earth has a mediator, a priest, a pastor, an imam, someone who stands between you and the sacred and tells you what it means. The Buddha, in his last breath, removed the mediator. He said, "There is nothing between you and the truth except your own willingness to train." And here is the part that makes this more than ancient history. In 2011, a neuroscientist named Sarah Lazar at Harvard Medical School published a study that made the scientific community uncomfortable. She took people who had never meditated and put them through 8 weeks of mindfulness training. not prayer, not philosophy seminars, training, sitting, breathing, observing the mind, 30 minutes a day. After 8 weeks, she scanned their brains. The gray matter in regions associated with self-awareness, compassion, and stress regulation had measurably increased. The amygdala, the part of the brain that drives fear and anxiety, had measurably decreased. The brain had changed shape, not through belief, through training, the Buddha said. Train your mind and the suffering will change. Sarah Lazar put people in a scanner and watched it happen. He did not have the word neuroplasticity. He did not need it. He had the word sikkhā, training, and he was right. That is what the Buddha taught. Not a religion that asks you to believe, not a philosophy that asks you to argue, a training that asks you to sit down, pay attention, and see what happens to the mind that pays attention. The training manual was never meant to be worshipped. It was meant to be used, and then, according to the Buddha himself, put down. So, is Buddhism a religion? Here is what the Buddha would say if you asked him. He would not say yes. He would not say no. He would say, why does it matter? What are you going to do with the answer? If you call it a religion, you will wait for it to save you. If you call it a philosophy, you will argue about it at dinner parties. If you call it what the Buddha called it, a training, you will sit down and do the work. 3 things to carry with you. First, the word Buddhism was invented by a French scholar in 1844. The Buddha never heard it. He called what he taught Dhamma-vinaya, truth and training, not a creed, not an argument, a practice manual for the human mind. Second, the Buddha is the only founder of a major world tradition who said, do not believe me. Test it. The Pali word is Ehipassiko. Come and see. If the training reduces your suffering, use it. If it does not, put it down. No other tradition on earth makes that offer. Third, you are not a believer. You are not a follower. You are not even a Buddhist, because that word did not exist when the training was written. You are someone in training. And the only test that matters is not whether you believe the right things. It is whether the training is working, whether certain events have lost their weight, whether things that used to define you have become things that simply happen to you. That is not faith. That is results. Here is my question for you, and I want you to answer this honestly in the comments. When someone asks you what Buddhism is, what do you say? Do you call it a religion, a philosophy, a practice? Or do you just say, I do not know what to call it, but it works. Tell me. Because I think the Buddha would have liked that last answer best. The Buddha's last words were not a prayer. They were a graduation speech. He looked at the man who had memorized everything he had ever said and told him, you do not need me anymore. You have the training. Now fly.